There was a moment in my life when patience stopped being a word and became a test. When it stopped sounding noble and started feeling unbearable, because patience is easy to praise when life is calm, but it becomes terrifying when everything inside you wants to move, fight, respond, explain, and yet you are forced to remain still. And I remember feeling that stillness like fire under my skin, like holding back a storm, while the world misunderstood my silence as weakness, my restraint as fear, my calm as uncertainty. And that was the moment that broke something inside me and rebuilt it stronger, because I realized patience is not about doing nothing. It is about doing the hardest thing of all, mastering yourself while everything around you is trying to control you. And I learned that impatience is loud because it is insecure, but patience is quiet because it is confident. And when I began to embrace that silence instead of fighting it, something extraordinary happened. My mind slowed down, my vision widened, and I started seeing consequences before actions, endings before beginnings, truths before words, and it shocked me how much clarity lives inside restraint, how much power hides inside waiting. Because patience does not weaken your will, it refines it. It burns away ego, impulse, and pride until only purpose remains. And there were nights when doubt sat beside me like an unwelcome guest, whispering that waiting would cost me everything, that hesitation would destroy momentum, that calmness would invite attack. But every time I resisted reacting, every time I chose discipline over emotion, I felt my inner foundation grow heavier, stronger, unmovable. And I understood that patience is not time wasted. It is time invested in becoming unbreakable. Because when you rush, you reveal your fears. But when you wait, you expose everyone else's. And I saw how those who mocked my silence could not survive it. How those who demanded instant answers collapsed under time. While I remained standing, not because I was faster, but because I was deeper. And that depth changed how I carried pressure, how I faced opposition, how I held authority. Because patience teaches you something nothing else can, that control over yourself is greater than control over others, that calm endurance defeats loud aggression, and that real strength does not announce itself. It arrives quietly and stays. And the most shocking truth I discovered was this, that patience does not protect you from pain. It teaches you how to walk through it without losing your soul, without becoming cruel, without becoming small. And once you learn that, no delay humiliates you, no obstacle breaks you, no enemy rushes you, because you are no longer chasing outcomes, you are shaping yourself. And when the moment finally arrives, you do not rise in chaos, you rise prepared, steady, grounded, unstoppable. And as I stayed with that understanding longer, I began to feel patience changing at a level deeper than discipline, deeper than strategy, because it started reshaping how I felt pain itself, how I carried disappointment, how I absorbed loss without letting it poison my spirit. And this is where it truly entered my heart, because I saw that impatience comes from fear of not being enough, fear of losing control, fear of being forgotten. But patience is born when you no longer fear time, when you trust that what is meant for you cannot miss you. And I remember moments when everything inside me screamed to act, to speak, to prove myself, to show strength, yet something stronger told me to hold my ground, to let time speak for me, to let consistency defend me. And in that restraint, I discovered a calm so deep it felt like standing at the center of a storm that could not touch me. Because patience does not remove the storm, it places you above it. And I watched people burn themselves out chasing outcomes, exhausting their energy on noise, while I conserved mine in silence, sharpening my resolve, strengthening my character. And I realized that patience is not slow, it is precise. It moves only when movement matters, and that precision saved me from mistakes that could have destroyed everything I was building. Because when emotion leads, reason follows too late. But when patience leads, wisdom arrives first. And the longer I lived this truth, the more I understood that patience is a form of courage the world rarely recognizes, because it takes courage to wait when others rush, courage to remain gentle when provoked, courage to stay disciplined when shortcuts tempt you. And there were days when patience felt like loneliness, when it felt like carrying a weight no one else could see. But even that loneliness taught me something sacred, that the path of endurance is often walked alone, yet it is the only path that leads somewhere worth reaching. And I felt my heart grow stronger without growing hard, My will grows sharper without growing cruel, and that balance is rare because many people learn strength and lose compassion, or learn patience and lose ambition. But true patience does neither. It aligns you so deeply with your purpose that nothing can pull you away from it. And what shook me the most was realizing that patience does not mean accepting injustice or surrendering dreams. It means choosing the right moment to rise, the right words to speak, the right force to apply, because uncontrolled action creates damage, but patient action creates change. And once this truth settled into my bones, fear lost its grip on me, because fear feeds on urgency, and patience starves it. And I no longer felt pressured by deadlines imposed by others, expectations shouted by crowds, or threats disguised as warnings, because I had learned the rhythm of endurance, the power of staying present without panic. And that is when patience stopped feeling like something I practiced and started feeling like something I became. A quiet strength that did not need validation, a steady flame that did not flicker in the wind. And I understood that the world may reward speed, but life rewards depth. And patience is the doorway to that depth. Because when you are patient, you are not waiting for life to happen. You are preparing yourself to carry it, and that preparation is invisible, misunderstood, and often mocked. But it is the reason some people collapse when success arrives while others stand taller under its weight. And this is the secret that changed me. That patience is not a pause before action. It is the foundation beneath it. And once you build that foundation, nothing above it can truly fall. And once that foundation was laid, I began to understand something even heavier. Something that does not reveal itself to those who live in haste. That patience does not only shape how you act, it reshapes how you suffer. Because suffering without patience hardens you, but suffering with patience refines you. And I felt that refinement slowly rewriting my inner world, teaching me how to endure pressure without becoming resentful, how to face resistance without becoming violent in thought or intention. And there were moments when the weight of expectation felt unbearable, when the silence demanded more strength than any confrontation ever could. Yet in that silence I discovered an inner language, a dialogue with myself that asked not when will this end, but what is this teaching me? And that question alone changed everything, because impatience asks why me, while patience asks what now? And I saw how time rewards those who respect I. How outcomes unfold differently when you do not try to force them, because force creates cracks even when it succeeds, but patience creates structures that last. And I watched situations resolve themselves not because I intervened too early, but because I allowed truth to rise on its own. And that shocked me deeply, because I had always believed leadership meant constant interference, constant correction, constant presence. But patience taught me that true leadership sometimes means knowing when not to move, when not to speak, when not to react. Because restraint at the right moment is more powerful than action at the wrong one. And I learned that patience is not passive waiting. It is active awareness. It is listening without surrendering, observing without judging, standing firm without becoming rigid. And this awareness sharpened my instincts in ways I never imagined. Because when you slow down internally, you begin to notice what others miss. The shift in energy, the cracks in intention, the quiet signals that reveal what words try to hide. And that clarity protected me from alliances that would have weakened me, from decisions that would have satisfied the moment but damaged the future. And I realized that patience is a filter. It separates what is urgent from what is important, what is loud from what is true, what is temporary from what is lasting. And as this understanding deepened, I felt fear slowly loosen its grip on my chest, because fear thrives in urgency. It needs you to rush, to panic, to decide before you understand. But patience suffocates fear by refusing to obey its timeline. And I remember moments when everything seemed delayed, when progress felt invisible, when results refused to appear, yet something inside me remained steady, because patience had taught me that growth happens underground before it ever shows itself above the surface. And juice. Because something is unseen does not mean it is not happening. And that realization gave me peace in uncertainty, strength in delay, and confidence in the unseen. And I understood that patience is faith translated into action. Not blind belief, but disciplined trust. Trust in process. Trust in preparation. Trust in becoming. And once that trust settled in me, comparison lost its power. Because I no longer measured my journey against others. I measured my consistency against my purpose, and that freed me from envy, from distraction, from the illusion that faster is better. And I saw how many people arrive early to destinations they are not ready to carry, only to collapse under the weight of what they rush to claim, while patience prepares you to arrive when you can stand. And this is where patience became more than a lesson. It became protection. Protection from ego, protection from regret, protection from self-destruction. And I knew then that patience is not delaying life. It is choosing to live it fully, consciously, with depth. And the longer I walked with this truth, the more unshakable I became, because nothing external could rush me anymore. Nothing could bait me into reaction. Nothing could steal my center. And that is a power few ever taste, because it requires you to conquer the most difficult territory of all, yourself. And conquering yourself is a battle that never ends. Yet it is the only victory that multiplies instead of fading. Because the more I lived with patience, the more I realized it does not make life easier. It makes you stronger than life. And that distinction changed everything for me. Because ease disappears the moment pressure arrives. But strength remains when everything else collapses. And there were moments when outcomes still did not go my way. When delays turned into disappointments. When silence was met with misunderstanding. Yet, even then, patience held me upright, not by numbing the pain, but by giving it meaning. Because pain without patience feels pointless, but pain with patience becomes instruction. And I learned to listen to that instruction instead of resisting it, to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it, to remain present instead of reactive. And this presence revealed another shocking truth, that impatience narrows your world. It traps you in the moment, but patience expands your vision. It allows you to see beyond the now, into what is forming, what is aligning, what is quietly moving in your favor. And I remember realizing that some battles are won not by confronting them, but by outlasting them. Because time exposes what force cannot. And patience allows you to stay long enough to see that exposure happen. And as I stayed, as I endured, as I refused to rush my own becoming, I felt my inner identity stabilize. No longer dependent on approval. No longer shaken by criticism. No longer hungry for immediate results. And that stability is rare. Because most people live on emotional spikes, rising with praise and collapsing with doubt. But patience flattens those extremes, giving you balance, giving you consistency, giving you a steady rhythm that does not break under pressure. And in that rhythm I found freedom. Freedom from the need to explain myself to everyone. Freedom from the urge to respond to every provocation. Freedom from the anxiety of proving worth. Because patience teaches you that worth is demonstrated over time, not announced in moments. And this realization softened me without weakening me, humbled me without shrinking me, grounded me without slowing me, and I saw how many conflicts dissolve when you refuse to feed them, how many threats lose power when you do not rush to confront them, how many fears disappear when you give them time instead of attention. And this does not mean patience makes you passive, it makes you precise. It trains you to choose your moments with care, your words with intention, your actions with purpose, and once you operate from that place, you no longer waste energy on noise. You reserve it for impact. And I felt my leadership mature not through force, but through consistency, not through dominance, but through endurance, not through urgency, but through depth. And the most unexpected part of this journey was discovering how patience heals what anger keeps open, how it restores what haste damages, how it reconnects you to your values when pressure tries to pull you away from them. And I understood that patience is not something you use until success arrives. It is something you carry even after it does. Because success without patience collapses into arrogance, while success with patience turns into responsibility, and that responsibility no longer felt heavy to me. Because patience had trained my shoulders to carry weight without bending. And as I looked back at the man I once was, hungry for speed, desperate for results, reactive to every challenge, I felt gratitude for every delay, every test, every moment that forced me to slow down. Because those moments built the version of me that could stand without shaking, decide without panic, and endure without losing compassion. And this is why patience no longer feels like waiting to me. It feels like walking steadily forward while others run in circles. It feels like building